All right, so I want to talk about how to get what you want using Mars, using your Mars placement. Okay, I talk about this a lot to really distinguish the planets, right? The sun is what you are, your core traits. You're coming to this, your sun. It is the easiest thing for us to see, the easiest thing to be is your sun sign. Now, we can talk about decans and degrees and houses, but for the most part, we talk about the sun, especially when we kind of contrast it to the rising. The sun is what you're confident being. Doesn't mean you love yourself. Some people might have some self-esteem issues, but the sun is like, I know this is what I am. And that's why we have to usually navigate all these other planets and tap into them as well. Mars, though, is drive, what I want, what I'm going to get. And we know Mars was Aries and it was Scorpio, so there's different ways Mars can be. Mars can be very open, very much external. Mars can be very loud, or Mars can be very under the surface, plotting to take or to join, to get something, to gain access to something, right? Right? It depends on which Mars we're talking about. The Scorpionic type of energy, or we're talking about the Aries energy. When we're dealing with Mars, we're dealing with direction, action. I want it. I'm going to go get it. And this is how I'm going to do it. We can see people that struggle with activating their Mars. Why might you struggle with your Mars placement? You don't resonate with your Mars placement. There's many reasons. Mars can be squaring something in your chart or an opposition in your chart. Mars can be your malefic planet. If you have a diurnal chart, that means Saturn is your benefic. So that means, right, for some of us, Mars is when we compare it to Saturn, Saturn's going to be better for us than Mars, right? There could be other things in your chart where you don't resonate really with Mars. Mars is in detriment. Mars is in fall. Mars is in a sign or place, a house it doesn't want to be in. Mars is in 12th house. And it's like, how do you activate that, right? So that's what we're going to talk about, okay? How to use your Mars sign to get better results from what you want. So I want to talk specifically about the sign, okay? So Mars and Aries. Now, this might sound like easy. Oh, so Mars and Aries is in rulership. Yes, and this is a strong placement if you have it. But let's say you have a sun sign or you have squares here where you aren't utilizing it. You're not going to be able to get what you want until you are bolder, until you have more courage, until you are active, until you are willing to just, do what has to get done, until you stop overthinking things, until you have the audacity, until you allow for yourself to just not overthink, overfeel, and just get something done. Mars and Aries energy is really about this kind of starting something new, doing something independently, right? You might have to go off on your own and do something independently for you to get what you want. You might not be able to rely on other people. So Mars and Aries, it is about like you have to do something that is going to be something individual, something that is going to allow for you to just spark and start something. You can get, depending on what's in the chart, for some of you who aren't using this energy, it's you're always trying to tag along with someone else and use your Mars and Aries energy to then take over. You have to start it. You have to be the initiator of things. And it doesn't mean that's who you are in personality. I'm not talking about you being a sun in Aries. I'm talking about when things have to get done or you want something, it is about you saying, I'm going to start this. I'm going to do it. And maybe you let other people take it over. But you don't want to then start to everything's about what someone else has to do. It's more so about you starting from self, and then you are allowing other people to be in. So if you're struggling to get what you want, it is because you are afraid to do it on your own, or you're afraid of how the result will be, but you can't. Mars and Aries, you can't be afraid. You just have to get it done. You just have to do it. And then you can use your other placements then to think about it, analyze it, look over it again. But with Mars and Aries, it is spark, start, get it, go, move, do it, energy. And it doesn't mean do something silly, stupid, or reckless, but it means you have to learn to tap into that. You have to learn to move in accordance with what has to get done in that moment. Get it done that moment. Do it right now. Don't think, don't go. It's using that Aries instinct of what has to happen. What do I need to do now? Now, on the contrary, Mars and Taurus, you can't do what Mars and Aries is doing. To get what you want, you have to move slower. You maybe you've been moving too fast. Maybe you have a square to that Mars. So I'm not talking about on the daily, because maybe you can't do this daily. But if we're talking about something you really want, something you want to show up, you want to show out, you have to slow down and use what you already have, because maybe you're chasing things you don't need. You're chasing things you don't need, and therefore you end up with a lot of things, but you don't have the raw resources. So now you have to go to the back to the drawing board and you get frustrated. Mars and Taurus, you you're going to get what you want better when you pause and you actually utilize what's already at your disposal. When you're actually, again, Mars rules over Scorpio, so Mars and Taurus, it does have to work a little bit harder. But in this, it's a process-based energy. You need to slow down. You need to see what you really have. Work slower. You work slower, you're actually going to catch mistakes. You work slower, you're actually going to see what you need and what you don't. When you work slower, you have the ability to see what's of value. You learn a lot through that process, and then it gets even easier for you to do this work. Mars and Gemini energy is interesting, but to get what you want, you have to use your words. You have to use what you know. Use your intellect. You might have to talk people into things, out of things, using that Mars and Gemini energy. Using your voice is going to be very important. Knowing how to defend yourself is going to be very important. Sometimes Mars and Gemini can have that battle of the words, conflict with people verbally, those types of things. But that's going to be essential to you getting what you want. It is learning how to act on what you know. Sometimes you can second guess things. I know someone that's a Sag Sun, Mars and Gemini, but they're known for how they speak. They can be very influential when they speak, but sometimes can second guess their decisions. So Mars and Gemini, it's like learning to trust what you know and going with it. You can benefit in this way because people are going to see a sense of like, oh, at least you're honoring what you actually say. So Mars and Gemini, it's very much about to get what you want. It is about using your voice, using your information, using your intellect, using what you know. Mars and Gemini, because people will listen to you. Whether your voice is very distinct, your voice has a certain ring to it, it's a louder voice, or if it's just the way you say things, you get what you want through how you speak, through what you know, through how you communicate with people. That's how you're going to get what you want. It's going to be through your communication skills that it's going to be that, okay? May not always be relationship skills, but those communication skills. Mars in Cancer, how to get what you want. Mars in Cancer to get what you want. Mars in Cancer, how do I say this? This placement struggles a lot. I've seen this placement struggles a lot. A lot of times, mainly for some reason in males, Mars and Cancer struggles. That's a whole different conversation. But Mars and Cancer, and Mars is in fall in Cancer anyway. Mars and Cancer, you get your way, you get what you want by utilizing and maybe even controlling in a way what it is others may need. You are in some way maybe in charge of something, right? Others may need this for access, and you're the type of person where you're like, okay, well, I'll grant you that. Like sometimes Mars and Cancer can create a barrier between what people need, or you're a buffer in some way between with Mars and Cancer only protecting what it cares about. Sometimes discarding what others need or discarding what isn't a part of your framework for what even matters. But I think that can help sometimes with manifestation because the Mars and Cancer, it's like you are only dealing with what is typically yours. You are dealing with, you're able to tap into things that require a greater sense of preservation of the things that actually matter to you. Now, again, it doesn't mean people. I'm not talking about Cancer as like the sun. I'm not talking about Cancer as like the family unit, which is what we usually think about with Mars and Cancer. It is around like if we're talking about what you want, you get what you want by focusing solely on the things that are going to emotionally satisfy you. You get what you want by actively pursuing what you've already poured into. What is something you've already created? What is something that you already have a link or a past connection to, making those types of links, those types of connections. That is how you're going to get what you want. And sometimes it can be through family members. I know someone with Mars and Cancer, but they're in Aries, and like their family unit helped them out a lot. I don't know if they still do, but like, they were a young adult, had their own job and stuff like that, but the family was still helping them out financially and things like that. So the Mars and Cancer, it can be about you benefit a lot from people who care about you. And sometimes you could tap into that. You get what you want through the people who already feel a sense of obligation to you. But with Mars in Cancer, and you just want to avoid being kind of like exploiting people emotionally. But with Mars in Cancer, it also can be about you benefit the most when you are aggressive, and I don't want to say aggressive badly, but you about the things that you already are yours, that things that are you're preserving, you're protecting because you want it to become something else. These are things that you already feel a certain level of, I would say, duty or obligation to. But it's what you want, and it's not what others want for you. And that's what I'm talking about with that Mars and Cancer default. A lot of Mars and Cancer, I've seen it. Mars and Cancer placements get people to take care of them sometimes. And so now, when people take care of us, they tend to give us what they think we need. But Mars and Cancer is about you actively going towards the things you know that you need, and you're not just using the resources, love, affection of others, okay? Mars and Leo, okay? Mars and Leo, to get what you want, to get further in what you want, you do have to approach situations through a lens of courage, having heart, not being afraid, not backing down, using your creative abilities, knowing that you kind of have to go a little bit harder with certain things. You have to have a lot of pride, and it's not about having the ego. It's okay to approach something with I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I'm making this better. I'm making this more creative. And it might just be going to a situation, realizing there needs to be some different moves made here. Because it's like, for example, Virgo. Okay, you're a Virgo. So you're Virgo sun. Okay, you're task oriented, maybe. You're detail oriented. You're dependable, right? But you have Mars and Leo. Well, to get what you want, you do have to have a little bit of ego. And that you can do that because you're a Virgo. So you're already humble. So you have a little bit of ego. But the ego, it's like you do have a sense of pride. You have to approach things with I know what I'm doing. I'm going to use my best level skills. I'm going to show you the best way to do this. I'm going to tap into things that allow for me to be creative. To get what I want, I can't do things the way they've always been done. I can't just do the status quo. I have to go bigger, bolder, and harder. Okay, that is what we're dealing with Mars and Leo energy. It is about this. You have to almost entertain yourself trying to get to the level where you want to get to. So having some enjoyment in that. Okay, Mars and Virgo. To get what you want, it's about process, procedure, and skill and technique. It's not about being the best at every single thing. It is about finding something to kind of match a little level of perfection to. Something. Mars and Virgo, you're tapping into this idea of the way that you do things is clean. It's methodical. There is an approach to it. It's not sloppy. Mars and Virgo energy is not very sloppy. So where I said Mars and Aries can be like, I'm going to just do this. I'm audacious. Mars and Virgo, to get what you want, it is about your skill level, being intentional with your skill level and showing people the importance of your skill level and dominating in a way with those things that you know are your level of skill, dominating with the process, the procedure, how things are supposed to get done. You might have to show people this is how they're supposed to get done, but you're a little bit more dominant in that, but you can be leader in that role as well. You show people the technique. The way in which you approach things is very procedural. And sometimes Mars and Virgo can be cleaner and more specific than the Virgo, okay? Depends on what's going on the chart. But that Mars and Virgo, that level, you'll dominate in areas where you have to be of service, or you can dominate in areas in which you have to follow a certain protocol, where you have to do a certain technique or a certain skill. Like you'll be known for that, or seen for something that maybe you could do that maybe is a struggle for other people to do. Mars and Libra. Mars is in detriment in Libra. And I feel like it's not a sign that on the surface seems to struggle, but it can. And it struggles a lot with decision making. It struggles a lot with being bold. And how to get what you want really requires, instead of just doing things because you think it's going to satisfy other people, it is about having this level of understanding of how to do things that benefit both of you. At its worst, Mars in Libra is overly compliant, overly passive, afraid to make a move, afraid to disrupt some sense of harmony that they think they may have. And sometimes it's not harmonious. A lot of times Mars and Libra and some other placements are in this kind of complacency of, well, things are level, things are fine where they are, but you're afraid to actually level up. We talk about that Mars and Aries, which is the opposite sign there. But so what can happen sometimes is you think that you're moving forward. You think your actions are keeping things stable when really somebody's missing something, and it's usually you. Okay, so with Mars and Libra, to get what you want requires you, in any endeavor situation that you're going through, you have to understand what each person, what each party is bringing, and how it's mutually beneficial. By going into those situations, you're learning how to recalibrate things that are essential, things that are equal. You're a second thought because you're so busy trying to placate someone, which can definitely be Mars and Libra. Okay, Mars and Scorpio, but liberal rulership, right? But how to get what you want with Mars and Scorpio, you got to know what you're trying to ascertain. It's not about power just for the sake of power. And so sometimes that could happen in an unevolved Mars and Scorpio. If your Mars is in some way compromised, right? It's squaring something, it's opposing something in the chart. Maybe Saturn is your benefic and Mars is not. But Mars is rulership, but it might not work really well in some cases for certain things. So The thing here is this relentlessness that we know that Mars and Scorpio has. How to get what you want, though, is to know what you're trying to. By the end of this is what I should accumulate. What am I accumulating? I'm not just accumulating the feeling and the thrill and the control and the power, because you can get involved in power struggles, one-upping something. But to really get what you want in life and stop looking at things just from, I got this, I got that, I got it, right? What am I getting? And as a result of what I'm getting, how am I now more evolved, or how am I now and farther along than I was before? Because you can get really attached to that feeling, that emotion of what you're doing. But really at its best, when we're talking about Mars and Scorpio, even the benefit of being able to manifest, it is about knowing and internalizing what it is that you're trying to obtain. If I get this, then I know that I will be at this level, or I'll be here. You don't just want to be attached to a feeling, right? How is what you are embarking on securing your ability to change and transform and be able to produce proof that you are evolving and essentially you are gaining more intensity? What you have is worthy of having. What you did helps you see your actual internal power, as opposed to just trying to consume and take something. Consume, consume, consume. Mars and Sag, how to get what you want does require you to have different experiences. It does require you to try different things. You're not going to know fully what your belief system is, or you're not going to know what you truly value and what you truly are capable of storing as knowledge until you go and do it. Mars and Sag energy is very much about this navigating what you dominate through. You dominate through knowledge. You're knowledgeable about something. And that requires you sometimes to lead people in thought, to lead people in understanding the variety of different ways things are. You have to have experiences that aren't common. You can't just get away with doing things the way they've always been done. So with Mars, it is an activity of learning from the things around you, engaging in a lot of different things. Requires you sometimes to not waver about what you believe to be true. And sometimes it can be argumentative, like I said, with Mars and Gemini. Mars in Sagittarius can sometimes deal with like conflicts, but it's belief systems, right? You're arguing with people over belief systems. And so it's important to have a range of experiences, because you're going to get what you want because you're open to the way it may look. Does that make sense? Mars and Sag, I'm dominant in this area of my life in terms of where I'm seeking to gain more expertise, more knowledge, more experience. But you'll benefit more when you don't stick to a script, because you're going to gain from things arrange a variety of ways. This worked this time, this works that time. This works this time, that works this time. So your approach to action is whatever works, whatever's going to help me see things through to the end, whatever makes this experience the best it can be, that is what I'm going to go with. I'm not going to necessarily do things the same way every single time. You can't. You're not going to benefit from that way, okay? And again, your Virgo placements, Taurus, or whatever. Birth chart stuff, different. In readings, I break everything down. But Mars and Sag in general, it is allowing yourself to have different ways of doing things to get the end result, okay? And being okay with that. Mars in Capricorn is tapping into the rules, tapping into what is already laid out. I say Sag has more range. Mars in Capricorn, it's not that you can't have range. Maybe you're an Aquarius and you're like, wait, I'm different. How to get what you want if you're Mars in Capricorn, you have to be the best at the system. Whatever the system is, whatever the rules are, whatever the rules of engagement are. And I'm not just talking about business or work. If it's within your family, if it's within a social group, in any setting, that ability for Capricorn to know how things go. They understand the tradition, the rules, the system, the order, the pecking order. They understand how to get from point A to point Z, B, whatever. So Mars, that dominance, right? And that's exhaustion, right? Mars in Capricorn, you're going to get ahead. You can get what you want by knowing the rules of engagement, by knowing and pushing forward and being the one who reminds everybody there's a way to do this. And this is the way you do it. And we're going to do this with fidelity. And we're going to keep moving through this, right? It is through those ways right? Mars and Capricorn already knowing. You already know how things are, tapping into those power systems, tapping into the way in which things are delegated, tapping into the things that you know. I already know how this person was successful. I'm doing the same thing, right? And if we talk about manifestation, you could be a person where it's like, this person was really successful in life, and I know they use this technique, I'm doing it. Mars, because Capricorn doesn't care about being the most original. Capricorn energy is about getting the thing they want, or having this sense of pride in maintaining a certain level of respect and reputation. And I don't mean pride like Leo, but Capricorn, it is around this level of greatness from working, greatness from doing the things required to do, right? So Mars and Capricorn, even with manifestation, is doing the thing that you know somebody else did, and doing the thing that you know is successful. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about your sense of dominating things that are structural and systematic. You're going to benefit from that because you already have that in your chart. Mars and Aquarius, you can get what you want by doing kind of the opposite of what someone told you to do. They just say it like, it is a rebellious placement. It is a very rebellious placement. And at first, especially younger in life, it can feel very much like, I'm doing everything wrong. Everyone keeps telling me I'm doing everything wrong, but until you gain that confidence. But you benefit and you can move forward in life when you do something kind of different than what someone else told you to do. Now, it's not about being rebellious and difficult on purpose. I'm not advocating for that. But I'm saying when it comes to things that you want, you kind of have to tap into things in a different way. You kind of do have to, it's almost like you have to see what it is that is different about how you want to do it, because you might see something no one else sees. And that's a good thing we talk about Aquarius and the idea of that, the idea of like future thinking, right? Sag is that ancient wisdom. We already know how things work. We have the philosophy. We can draw on ancient archetypes to know how what's going to happen, right? Prophecy. But Mars and Aquarius energy is forward thinking, futuristic. So you benefit and you can win and you can get what you want when you approach things from a different lens, from a different way, because you're going to be the person that actually shows others the ways in which how to reinvent things. You're going to lead in that. You have to be direct in that. Okay. You have to do things differently. Try things out. Experiment. To get what you want, you have to experiment. So if you're not getting what you want, you haven't experimented enough. You're afraid. You're playing it safe. Maybe you're a Taurus. You got some Taurus energy, and your Mars and Aquarius is sitting there. And you're like, I don't know what to do with this. Right? And it doesn't mean to be risky all the time. That's not what I'm saying. Mars and Pisces, you get what you want through playing the waiting game, waiting for the right time. You might be a person where you sleep. Pisces is sleep. Pisces is sleep. Right. Pisces will sleep. So Pisces, Mars and Pisces, like Mars and Taurus, does not move fast. It doesn't want to move fast. It has no reason to move fast, and it has nothing to prove. So Mars and Pisces, you do best when you do things that are aligned with something that you feel is a vision that you have. You're going to get what you want. What you do has to be really aligned with something that is a part of a thing that you want to create, or something that doesn't yet exist. You don't do best from doing what is already there. You're not being methodical. You're not being strategic. Mars and Pisces, you're not being strategic. You're not being risky. You're not Mars and Aries. You can't just go bold. Now, I'm not saying you can't. I'm not doing a birth chart reading, so calm down. I always tell people, like, I'm doing a general description. When we do readings, that's when we get more specific about when this shows up. But Mars and Pisces, you're not here to attach to anything. You're not here to placate. You're not here to just be follow the thing that someone said to do. You're not here to show off. And it's about the vision, but not about the vision. Remember, Mars is dominance. Mars and Pisces can also be really imaginative in the sense of your direction. So you might have people that think you're delusional. You might have people that look at your course of action and say, that's not realistic. That'll never work. But if you want something and it's a good something, you kind of have to be a little delusional. Your action, your approach to something is going to be unseen. Pisces doesn't have a rule book. Doesn't have a task list, not Virgo. Doesn't have a blueprint. It's not Taurus. It does not have an approach, a goal. It doesn't have kind of like a traditional method or like this a laid out understanding of things integrally. The the origin of things. That's Capricorn. I understand where this started. I understand where this is going. That's not you. So Mars in Pisces requires you to sometimes be a little bit delusional, to follow things all the way through, and then realize that what you're getting might not be instantaneous. But to get what you want, especially to tap in, if we're talking about manifestation, Mars in Pisces, it is about this idea of going forward and action planning with things to create the vision. Mars is active. Okay, we're still talking about Mars. Mars is still active leadership and right, this level of open ambition. It's not prescriptive ambition. It's not the, we can talk more about Capricorn, but Mars and Pisces, it's like, it is about you maintaining the vision. You're the one, you're bringing it, and you have to be very, very aggressive in creating the vision that sometimes people don't know that they need. And so for you to get what you want, it does require you to act on the things you don't have, right? Act on those things and believe that they can happen, that they can be there, right? So that is it for this. I'm hoping this made sense to someone, the way I'm trying to break this down. But I just want people to understand, like with Mars, it's like, if I want something, I need to tap into my Mars sign. If I'm not getting the results I want, results could be Saturn, but if I'm not getting something, or I don't feel that I am taking charge in my life, I need to look at my Mars sign. I need to see where Mars is and what's going on there.